Thank you for the very nice introduction, and thanks for the opportunity to come here and share some of the findings from some of our recent work. Actually, back in January 12th, we published a study with the focus on online intermediaries and their economic impact. And what we recently did is that we updated this study. As we just heard from David, the internet has been a game changer for the entire European economy and the society as well. And thanks to David and his teams, we also have some good hard facts to document the magnitude of the internet's economic impact, the economic footprint in Europe generally. That's good because it gives us a sound basis for the discussion that we're going to have tonight. As we know the internet today, it also depends a lot on online intermediaries, because online intermediaries plays the role of organizing all the information available online. If you think about it, what would the internet be if you didn't have the online intermediaries to make it accessible, searchable, and finally also useful for users? Spend a second thought on it. What would the internet be without search engines, without social media, without all kinds of intermediation? What my team and my team from Copenhagen Economics, what we did in the study is actually to stand on the shoulders of the work that BCG did and carve out the share of the internet economy's footprint that can be attributed to online intermediaries. And that's pretty much the exercise. And now you guys really want to hear some numbers, but I try to keep it here for a few more moments to let you know a bit more about these online intermediaries. They have been a key driver for economic growth, innovation, creativity, and actually also expression. That's out of my field, I'm an economist. They enable businesses and consumers to sell and produce products all over the world, not just in the neighborhood. In this way, if you see it from a competition economist point of view, this kind of activities reduce entry barriers to markets, it enhances the scale effects, and that creates competition, which at the end of the day is to the benefit of all consumers. Online intermediaries, they rely on the liability regime that has been discussed a lot. And I'm going to mention it now as well. In the EU, the liability regime is described in the e-commerce directive, and it protects this kind of activities from being this kind of firms and their activities from being held responsible for the things that users do on their platforms. And if they didn't have this protection, then many of them wouldn't have a viable business case, and the world and the internet would look very different. In our report from January 12th, we argued that a well-functioning liability regime is important, and we argued that it was a good thing that legal uncertainties has been removed, and that this is actually the ground that made the numbers we came up possible at all. And now you're thinking, yeah, will she come to the numbers? And yes, I will, I promise. In 2012, in total, we estimated that the intermediaries' activities in the EU contributed 310 billion euros to the European economy in the direct GDP contribution. As David described before, above this we also have some other effects. One of them is the productivity effects, and our estimate back then was that there were an indirect GDP contribution of 150 billion euros. That was based on 2009 data. Updating these numbers with new available data, wherever it was possible, we have found that there's been a great growth since back then. We see growth rates of around 10% per annum, which is considerably higher than the growth in the economy-wide GDP numbers over the same period. These new numbers, they confirm that the structure and the implementation that has went on since back then of the liability framework has contributed to growth. They are perfectly in line with what we postponed back then. And the conclusion should be that this part of the game has been a great success so far, and hopefully it's a line that can be continued. However, another important point is that it should be noted that for the sector to continue to see this kind of growth in the EU, the digital single market is key. There's still considerable barriers that block the free flow of online services and entertainment across national borders in the EU, and any forthcoming EU-wide legislation should be carefully not to further entrench these barriers. I could start, but then I wouldn't keep it within 8 minutes to talk about these barriers. Another option is that you consult some of our work that you can find on our webpage. So I'll just conclude by saying that preserving and improving the regulatory framework that governs online intermediaries in the EU will underpin the economic growth we see being generated by online intermediaries. Thank you.